Got one. Pretty big guy too. Howdy folks, I'm Ethan. I'm here on the farm in South Dakota where I grew up, and today we're gonna go out and do some rabbit hunting. This is something that growing up we would do all the time. I have 3 older brothers, and we would always be out shooting rabbits, shooting squirrels with our 22s, and anything we shot we ended up eating. So that's our goal today. If we can find us a rabbit, then we'll be happy campers, and we'll get this thing cooked up. If we do get something, we're planning to cook it over embers on an open campfire, which I've done a few times before, and it's always a good time. So we'll see what we find. You know, it's never guaranteed that you're gonna find a rabbit, but we'll give it a try, and we'll see. Got one. Nice. Yeah, we got one here. This is perfect. Yeah, this is a pretty decent sized one, really. Here, take a look in here. That is a good looking cottontail right there. We'll get him out here, and we'll take a closer look at him. It's a male, pretty big guy too. Yeah. You guys, I've eaten so many rabbits over the years. Seriously, I tell people, and I really mean it, it's my favorite meat. I like it more than beef, more than chicken. Sometimes it does get kind of a bad rap that, you know, it's really tough or really gamey, and if you do it the right way, it's really not. But for now, I'm gonna keep on going and see if we can't get us another one, and yeah, fetch us a brace of conies. But yeah, for the time being, I'm really pumped that we got one. You know, a lot of times you go out and you get skunked. Sometimes you see animals, sometimes you don't, and that's all right though. That's what makes it fun. So I'm out here, and it's starting to drizzle a little bit, so I just took some shelter underneath the tree fort, and I'm just gonna try to wait out the rain a little bit. All right, so it sounds like it's pretty much done sprinkling, so I think we're gonna keep on going and see if we can't find us another rabbit. Don't be afraid to make some noise. You know, really, you can alert the rabbits that they're coming along. You know, you don't want to be making too much noise so that they're scared off before you're even within 100 yards, but you don't want to just be a wraith or a ghost. You want to make a little bit of noise, and a lot of times your noise alone, that'll make them break. But the really critical thing to know about rabbit hunting is that they're really, really well camouflaged. These cottontails, at least this time of year here in South Dakota, they blend in so well, and they know that, and they'll use that to their advantage. And if you're walking by, they'll just let you pass right on by, and they won't move at all. So really, one of the big tricks of rabbit hunting is as you're walking along, every 20, 30 yards, even less than that, every 10 yards, just stop and just wait in dead silence. And that, a lot of times, you know what, that'll psych them out, and they'll bust their cover and they'll run for it. And that's a really good way to flush out rabbits if you're not seeing anything, is just to stop every once in a while. And a lot of times that'll get them to move. There's something about it that it's like it gets to them, and they just can't stand to stay still anymore if you're staying still, because they think that you've spotted them and that you're going to be chasing them like you're some big predator, and they'll make a break for it. So that's my number one tip for rabbit hunting, is stop at regular intervals. In terms of what we're using today, this is a Henry lever action 22, and tell you what, this thing is really slick. And I have used this thing and used it, and I can't sing its praises enough. This is a great little firearm. Just going around shooting rabbits, shooting squirrels, plinking, you know, just at the range. This is really just a fun gun. It makes you feel like John Wayne in one of the old westerns. And it's great because it's 22, it's really cheap, so you can shoot it a lot and not feel too bad. A lot of people use shotgun when they're hunting rabbits. That's okay, you know, it definitely will bag you more rabbits, but honestly, I really prefer using a 22. With a shotgun, even if you're using a 20 gauge, it really just peppers the meat with BBs. I pretty much primarily use 22 when I'm hunting rabbits or even squirrels, any sort of small game like that. The absolute most productive times to rabbit hunt are right in the morning around dawn, and maybe the hour or two afterwards, and then at dusk. Well, it's really getting dark, and it's almost, you know, getting too dark to see. That's when the rabbits really start to come out to play and forage around. And right now it's middle of the day. It's really not the best time of day to be hunting rabbits. Ideally, you'd be out here early in the morning around dawn, or like I said, towards dusk, and you're gonna see a lot more rabbits then. But you know, the funny thing is that you can't predict what the rabbits are gonna be doing, and sometimes you can be out those perfect times of day and you won't see a blame thing. Rabbits make virtually no sound. I mean, they do have distress calls that they'll sometimes put out, but you hardly ever hear those. It's primarily a visual matter of spying them, and really they're so well camouflaged that unless they're moving, it's pretty hard to see them. But you know, that's one of the tricks, is it is possible to spot them when they're motionless and they're just sitting there and watching you and wondering, is he gonna see me? Is he gonna see me? So really use your eyes, and if you can spot them when they're stationary and they haven't run yet, that's perfect. That's, you know, that's the best opportunity to get a shot off before they're spooked and they're already running. The other thing about rabbit hunting, when they are on the move, you know, if you see a rabbit running, don't go running after it. Just approach it steadily, slowly. 9 times out of 10, the rabbits will stop and they'll just assess whether you're gonna chase them or not. And so if you stay still, they won't spook. But if you go running after them, you know, blundering through the trees, making just a bunch of thundering, crashing, thrashing noises coming through the woods, they're gonna be gone. I don't know if you can see this or not, but there's one way down there, right in the middle of the alleyway. He's tiny, he's so far away, but I'm afraid to walk much closer because I think he's gonna spook into that brush pile over there. So this is a pretty long shot for iron sights. It's probably 60 yards, 70 yards, maybe not quite that far, but I'm gonna give it a try and we'll just see what we can get. well, I missed that one, but that's all right. We already got one, and so we're doing plenty good. Really, there is a lot of meat on a rabbit, and unless you're gonna feed 5 or 6 people, you really can stretch one rabbit a long ways. I would say that you could pretty easily feed 4 people, certainly 3 people with one good sized rabbit, as long as you're cooking it in a way that stretches the meat out a little bit. So chili, any sort of stew, something that's gonna spread it a little bit further than if you're just frying up the meat and, you know, breading it and deep frying it, and the meat's all there is. It'll feed a lot more people if you use it in a soup, or if you use it in a stir fry or something like that, that just stretches a little further, which obviously goes without saying, but you'd really be surprised how much meat there is on one rabbit. All right, so we have a rabbit here. I'm gonna go ahead and get a nice sharp knife, and we're gonna go ahead and clean this guy. And once I have him all cleaned out, then we'll take another look at him. But before we clean it, I just wanted to give you guys a little heads up that rabbits are carriers for this infection, this bacterial infection called tularemia, and it's pretty serious. It's very rare, but a couple really key rules to remember is the first one, and actually my old family doc told me this when I was growing up. He said that you should only ever eat the rabbits that you're hunting in months that have an R in them. So that's September through April. Otherwise, in the summertime, you don't really want to be eating rabbit. And I actually didn't know that until I was probably in my teens, and by that time I had already eaten tons and tons of rabbits through the summer. So I'm still here to live to tell about it, but that is a pretty good rule to live by, and ever since then I've really followed that rule of thumb. You should only be eating rabbits in months with an R in them. And the other thing too, when you do open up the rabbit and you're cleaning it, always check the liver, and if there's any white spots on the liver, then steer clear. Stop cleaning it, don't eat it, because that's a sign of tularemia. I've never seen that, and you know, all these years and years of eating a lot of rabbits, nobody in our family or our friends have ever had any trouble, but that is something to be aware of. And if you are somebody like me who hunts and eats a lot of rabbits, then statistically you're probably more likely to come across it. And so really awareness is the big thing, and just hunting and eating rabbits in months with an R in them. So here's the finished product. You can see these beautiful back quarters here and the back straps. There's a lot of meat in there. And on a rabbit, it has this almost, it's like the bacon of the rabbit is how I've heard people describe it. So we'll cut that off and we'll fry it up kind of like bacon. I thought I had shot it in the neck. I shot it, basically it grazed the front leg on the other side, and it entered right through the vitals, and then it came out here at the back of the rib cage, so through the vitals. But all we're gonna do right now is just throw this in some water, and we'll seal this up, get this in the fridge, and that'll be good. A lot of people swear by using salt brines, or putting the rabbit in buttermilk, or even vinegar. There's everybody has their different recipe for soaking the rabbit, and they all talk about getting rid of the gamey taste, and I really don't think that there's that much of a gamey flavor. So I only ever put it in cold water and seal it up and throw it in the fridge, and it can keep good for 3 or 4 days even. Generally about a day is probably the best, but it can go for a couple more days than that. And there's nothing wrong with, if you want to salt it, make a brine, or some acidity with vinegar, or the buttermilk, that actually starts to really help break down the meat and make it more tender, from what I've heard. And I've tried all those methods, and really I just like the simplicity of water It's cheap, you know, you don't have to buy extra ingredients, and it works great. And I really don't think that there's much flavor that you have to mask or get rid of or anything. So it's the next morning, and it's a beautiful day out here, and we're gonna go ahead and try to get this rabbit cut up, and then we have the ingredients here to make a marinade. We'll get this thing marinating, and then we'll go start the fire. All right, we're gonna get this thing quartered. Go ahead and just pop the ball joint out. There's a lot of good meat in these rear quarters. I'm just going to cut off these little belly pieces. Take down the shoulders. So you can see it right here. This is where we shot this guy. So it just grazed that front leg. Now, in terms of what's left here, you got the rib cage, you got the back. The bulk of the meat by far is in these back straps, and there's really not a lot of usable meat on these ribs. So we're just gonna go ahead and cut off these ribs. And now this guy, we're gonna go ahead and divide him into 3 pieces. And some of this membranous stuff you can just trim off. That's just gonna get in the way of when we're gonna barbecue these guys. So you can see here the ingredients we have for our marinade. We got some minced garlic, probably about 3 teaspoons or so. I didn't actually measure it. This is some lemon thyme that we grew last year. It's dried out, obviously. We've stored it through the winter. Here we got some black peppercorns and maybe about a teaspoon of sea salt. A little bit less than a cup of olive oil. This is dried rosemary that, again, we grew last year in the garden, and just amazingly fragrant. 1 lemon, we'll zest that, and then we'll juice it as well. It'll just make this delicious marinade. We'll start off with our olive oil. Got our minced garlic. nice delicious pulp into the marinade. Alright, and then we'll get this all nice and incorporated. That is beautiful. That's going to make a great marinade for this rabbit. We got ourselves just a gallon baggie here. It's a freezer bag, a little bit more durable. And all we're going to do is go ahead and plop the meat into this marinade. Make sure you get it all coated and that everything, all the meat surfaces are all in contact with the marinade. And this is going to be so good. And we're going to get this in the bag, chuck it in the fridge, and we're going to let this marinate for, you could go for up to probably half a day or so. I mean, minimum, you're going to want probably a half an hour on this. So anywhere from, ideally, maybe an hour to maybe 4 or 5 hours. Alright, and we're just going to transfer it all to this freezer bag. And then we'll go ahead and pour all the rest of this into. Every last little peppercorn counts. And go ahead and try to get all the air out of there as much as possible. There's always going to be a little bit left, but try to get all the air. Oh, you know what, guys, you know what I forgot to do? I need to take a little bit of this out, and we're going to reserve it back and use it as a glaze. So let me just take a little bit out of here. Doesn't have to be a ton. We'll just take out enough to work with. And we're going to add some honey to this, and it's going to make this really nice glaze to use while we're actually grilling. Alright, perfect. We got probably at least a half a cup in there. That should be plenty. So we got our rabbit all nice and marinating here, freezer bag. We're gonna chuck this in the fridge, and we also held back probably about half a cup, maybe 2/3 of a cup of the marinade, and we're gonna go ahead and use that to make a nice glaze. We're gonna add some honey, heat it up over the fire, and that'll be what we apply when we're grilling. For making the glaze, we got some honey here. It's honey from a friend of ours. They actually raise the bees, and so it's really, really good quality honey. They spin it out themselves. There's no real recipe. Heaping tablespoon. That is thick. We also need a fire because that's how we're going to cook this rabbit. I was toying around with the idea of doing a spit. That's what I've done before, where you just keep the whole rabbit intact and you build a little rotisserie with green wood and just rotate it over the fire, and you keep the rabbit whole. And it's a fun way of doing it, but I decided today we went ahead and broke it down, and that's what I do probably 95% of the time with rabbits anyways, is quarter them up like I showed you. What do you think, Otis? Do you like your rabbit? I think that's yes. Yeah, that's definitely a yes. So we're gonna barbecue this rabbit. We're gonna get a little bit of wood to start a fire. And I mean, normally you can go out and get wood out of the grove, but we burn a lot of wood in the fireplace through the winter, and so we actually split a lot of wood. There's always old trees falling, and so we go chainsaw them up and then bring them over here to the woodshed, and we split them, and then we pile them up here. So there's that side, and then this side here, and I mean, ideally, you'll let this stuff dry for at least a year, if not, usually it's about 2 or even 3 or 4 years before we're burning it. So it gets really nice and dry in here, just bone dry. It's out of the elements, it has a good roof on it here. And this stuff it burns clean in the fireplace inside. It doesn't soot up the chimney so bad. So this is what we're going to use today to cook our rabbit. we're not gonna go get our own wood. It's been raining so much here, it's so wet. We're just gonna get some nice dry wood here and get a hot fire going and get a good bed of coals. So we got some Vaseline soaked cotton ball here and just a little magnesium striker, and we're gonna try to use this to get this thing going. There we go. We're gonna go find some wild catnip to use as a basting brush. It'll be a little bit extra flavor, and we can just throw it away when we're done. So we're here in the windmill, and there's a bunch of wild mint here growing, and here's a big old thing of catnip. So we're gonna get some of this and use that as a basting brush. There we go. That ought to do just fine. Catnip is in the mint family. It's a little bit just more bitter and less palatable, but it's still very much edible, and you can cook with it. You can make it into tea, but this is going to be a really good basting brush for us today. We're going to use this to cook down our glaze a little bit. All right, the glaze is pretty much done. I'm gonna go ahead and take it off the fire, and we're just gonna set it on the edge of the fire here.
It'd be fun to brew with you here, Joe.
We're just gonna set it there.
You here tomorrow?
For now. And then this guy's gonna be piping hot. We're gonna go ahead and put the rabbit on there and grill these guys. All right, we're gonna start with the these biggest guys, the thighs. Oh yeah, nice sizzle. Those guys are sizzling real nice on there. We're just gonna give them a while on that side, and then we'll flip them over and we'll go ahead and baste them. We don't have to worry too much about the moisture draining out, flipping them multiple times, because we're gonna be basting them pretty actively. They're coming along nicely. They smell really good. I honestly have no idea how long it's gonna take to cook each side, but we'll flip them here in a little bit and see how they're doing. All right, we're gonna go ahead and flip these guys, see how we're looking. Oh, nice. Not burning, just cooking through nicely. We'll flip these and then put a nice first glaze on them. Alright, so we got this one side pretty well glazed. I'm going to go ahead and flip them, and hopefully that honey starts to caramelize in there. Oh yeah, nice golden brown. Alright, we'll use a little bit more of this stuff and try to just kind of cool down that side that was just facing down. In terms of when these things are going to be done, they say that you want to get rabbit to about 155 on the internal temperature of the biggest piece. So I have a meat thermometer here, and we'll be checking them that way. But we also, since we have this nice honey glaze, we kind of want to get a caramelized outer surface. So it'll be kind of visual, and then kind of the thermometer too. These things are getting nice and caramelized, and there's so much heat here. This is a really, really solid bed of coals, and a bed of coals like that, it'll keep you going for quite a long time. Even when I'm dripping all the honey glaze into the coals, that's cooling them off, but honestly, that's kind of a good thing. They're so hot. You guys, these are looking so good. This is a new way of doing rabbit for me. I've never done them this way before, and they're really turning out well. Anytime you see a piece like that that looks dry, just go ahead and apply more of this baste and just keep them from getting too dry. I think we're going to go ahead and, oh, look at that, the other side. That's looking really good. We're going to check the temperature on these thicker pieces. Alright, we're going to go ahead and take our thermometer and check the internal temp on these bigger guys. Oh yeah, we're up to 160s. It's really hot. It's hard to keep my hand there even. Well, these things are plenty hot. They're up to temperature, so they're pretty much going to be done now at any point. It's just a matter of finishing them off and getting a nice final caramelized layer. Alright, we're going to take these front quarters off first. They're definitely done. Oh man, those look good. We're just going to cut into this to show you guys here. Oh yeah. That is so good. The honey glaze is really sweet. Yeah, that's moist stuff. That is good. That stuff is so good. We'll see how these bigger pieces are doing. Alright, these are the bigger pieces, and these are definitely done now. So these are going to come off. Well, here we go. This is the final product, and we've already been eating on it a little bit, and it's really, really tasty. So what we've done today with this rabbit, this is actually a very common dish over in Italy, at least as far as the rabbit is concerned. And rabbit is pretty popular in Italy from what I've read. This dish is called coniglio spiedo or something like that. I probably butchered the pronunciation, but the honey glaze is really what sets that apart, and it just kind of protects the meat as it's just roasting over the embers. But check this out. That's some good rabbit right there. I got one of the back legs, and I'm gonna bite into this, see how it is. Mmm. Oh, that is so good. That honey glaze, that is amazing. And the rosemary and savory, that is so tasty. Mmm. You guys, I love rabbit. I don't know why it's not more popular here in the US. It's such a widely available source of protein, and it is so tasty. That is good. There's a lot of meat on this leg. Mmm. Just cooked nicely. It's not overdone, it's not burned, it's not dry. It's just moist and tasty. That is so good. Alright, I'm gonna shut the camera off and we're gonna go have a picnic with the whole family. A couple of my brothers are here and some of my nephews. So we're gonna go have a picnic and we'll see you guys for the next adventure.
Let's get a little bit more meat, maybe.
Turn in your cup.
Alright, I'm gonna try a little bit of this.
Oh yeah.